to my YouTube channel. It is now Tuesday, the 20th of July. I am coming into 13 weeks out this coming weekend. So it has been 2 and a bit weeks since I started my cut down, and I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of an update of how the first couple of weeks of the shred have gone, alongside a full day of eating today on a rest day. So it's low calories, and things have definitely ramped up this week as well. So my calories have dropped. So guys, this morning I got up and my usual routine is to do my daily steps in the morning. So I do part of that early morning on the treadmill, and then once the sun comes up, it gets a little warm, I go out and do the rest of the steps on the beach. So I have done that, and it's now time for meal number 1, and I'm still having my overnight oats for breakfast. So I'll show you guys. So this week, my non-training day calories have dropped down to 1610. So we have really ramped things up. I've got 140 grams of protein, which is standard protein intake for me. 50 grams of fat, and then my carbs have dropped to 150. On my training days, I have 100 extra grams of carbs per day. So that brings my calories up to about 2,000 on my training days. So meal number 1, the overnight oats, they are definitely getting a little bit smaller than they were at the start. They are still my favorite meal of the day. So guys, let me chat through some of the changes that I am onto now 3 weeks into the cut. So this is my 3rd week into the cut. It's only Tuesday though, so I've still got a fair bit of the week to go before I get my final weigh-in or check-in for the 13-week out mark. So I like to keep my meals exactly the same on my low and high days. It's just something about like adherence to the plan and being in that routine that really works for me. Generally changing up the meals often, I don't know why, I just find it so much hard mentally when it comes to just getting in the zone and sticking with the plan. So I've got the same meals today that I do tomorrow on my training days. The only thing that changes is obviously the carbs. I have 100 more grams of carbs on my lower body training days. So basically week 1 of the shred, we really just tightened things up. I didn't really have too much of a drop in calories, no cardio added in, steps were 12K per day. And in the first week, I actually put a poll on my Instagram, I think, to see what you guys thought I was gonna drop in the first week. The first week I dropped about 800 grams. Now I kind of knew the first week was going to be more of a drop because it was more or less really tightening everything up, slight drop in carbs. So a lot of that would have been a little water retention as well. Week number 2, so the second week of the shred, my coach and I kept everything exactly the same, no changes, and I only dropped 200 grams in the second week. So things obviously straight away started to slow right down again. So this week my coach had ramped things up, and now we've kind of gone into the first big jump into the deficit. So 1610 calories on my non-training days and 2010 calories on my 3 lower body sessions per week. So since we started the cut, I have dropped a total of 1.8 kilos. So it was about 800 grams in week 1. In week 2, only 200 grams. And between Friday only and now, we have ramped it up, and I've already dropped an extra, what is that, 800 grams. So you can see like week 1 was a big drop, week 2 not so much, week 3 not even halfway through the week yet, and I've already had a massive drop. So I'm guessing by the end of this week, when I'm 13 weeks out, 3 weeks into the cut, I'm gonna be close to that 3 kilo drop by that point. It's so important to remember, guys, that when you are going through a fat loss journey, it's never really that consistent. You are always gonna have weeks where something changes, and then you might have 1 to 2 weeks where nothing changes. And this is often where I find people tend to give in too easily. They think nothing's happening, and then they revert back to old ways because they get frustrated by what they're seeing on the scale. but you really do have to continue to stick things out, because often that is a normal part of the process. It's not going to be a constant and same drop every single week. So regardless of me only dropping 200 grams in the second week of the shred, I was still confident that we were still heading in the right direction. And I probably will continue to give you guys a little update on what the amount of weight that I do drop each week, so that you guys can kind of see yourself. Some weeks it will be a bigger drop than other weeks. Some weeks it might be stagnant. So it's all part of the journey, and you've just got to stay focused and keep going, and always trust your coach, really. Just trust the process, trust the coach along the way. So right now it is Tuesday, not my check-in day until Friday, but I was weighing in at 70.4 this morning, which is obviously the lightest weight that I've weighed in some time now, which is crazy, right? Because for so many years I have never been over that 70 kilo mark, except for one time, which I'm going to chat to you guys about soon, and that was after my first ever competition. I think it's 7 or 8 years ago now, but it was a long time ago. That was the only one time that I had been over 70 kilos in my life, and that was 70 kilos of fat gain. So for me now, like being in my growth phase, or being at the top end of my growth phase, and being well past 70 kilos, I think I was close to 73 kilos at the top part of that gaining phase. But in terms of my body composition, I actually felt quite good. Like I didn't really feel like I had gained a lot of body fat. If anything, my composition was feeling pretty decent. Of course, I don't have my abs anymore, but you know, more or less I was feeling comfortable with my weight and the way that I looked, but weighing so much heavier than I'm used to seeing on the scale. So to give you guys an idea, like normally the last 2 to 3 years, heading to about 68 kilos on the scale is usually my higher end of the mark. So when I would hit 68 kilos, that's when I know I have been enjoying my life a little. So I would never kind of go over that. And a very comfortable weight for me to be at and feel amazing is around 66 to 67 kilos. So being at around 72 to 73 kilos has been a real change for me. But also it makes me think that I've actually gained a decent amount of muscle in the last 2 to 3 years, and really improved on my shape and muscle mass, and hence why doing this building phase has pushed me over that 70 kilos mark. I will actually see if I can hunt down a photo for you guys of the one time I hit over 70 kilos around 7 or 8 years ago after my first competition, and you guys will see the difference. I mean 70 kilos of body fat with far less muscle mass composition. So I had literally blown out after that competition, and I look completely different. I don't know if I even have any photos, because I probably deleted them because of how much I hated them, but I'll see if I can hunt one down and share it with you guys on this video soon. But it just goes to show, you know, back then 70 kilos was very high body fat for me. And these days, 7 years later, I can sit comfortably at 70, 73 kilos and still feel fit and comfortable in the way that I look. So I've definitely come a long way in this time. So anyway, back to my meals, because I am about to have meal number 2 for the day. I'm only having 4 meals plus a little dessert at the moment. So I have my oats, then I train, or like today, rest day, I'm not actually training. And then I have a lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and a little ice cream before bed. So I'm gonna show you guys meal number 2 for the day, and then I'm gonna chat to you about my first ever competition experience. So guys, my first ever years of competing was when I was around 21 years old, I believe. So the first time I had ever been inspired by comp preps was basically after I had studied my PT qualification. I was working in the gym, and I actually saw some photos in an Oxygen magazine of some girls that were competing. Now, if you don't know, I have a dance background, so I have spent my whole life training as a ballet dancer. I have performed on stage, so it has been something that I have really loved, and the idea of being able to get back on a stage but doing something in fitness absolutely excited me. So I had basically reached out to a coach who I had just asked someone at the gym that I worked at if they knew about it, and I think that was how I got the recommendation. Bear in mind, guys, this was way before the times of Instagram. So I was only just starting my fitness journey at this point in time. I don't even think I had done my nutrition qualification yet by this point. So I was a baby in the industry and I was learning. At this point in time, I did not even track macros. I kind of knew how to, but I'd never actually consistently done it for myself. So I was really going into this whole competition prep completely blind. I had obviously trained very hard. I loved my training. I was confident in the gym, although I was still, as I said, a beginner. So I was still finding my way in how to train effectively. I really was just at the very start of my journey at this point. So basically, when I started prepping for my show, I had not done any sort of off-season kind of prep, and I had no idea that you even needed to. So I approached my coaches. It was a husband and wife who helped me get to the stage. I approached them, I think maybe it was like 12 or 13 weeks before I heard there was a local show. So not a lot of time at all, but at that point in time, I had no idea, you know, you had to do prep before actually doing the diet. So basically at about 12 weeks out, went straight into that dieting phase. Of course, this was back in the days where it was a very old school kind of approach that was going with a lot of competition preps back then. So, you know, my coach would just write down on a piece of paper basically what I was eating for the next however many weeks ahead, and it didn't change really. The only thing that changed was the portions would slowly drop and drop and drop and drop. So basically this kind of diet was chicken and broccoli. I'm talking steak for breakfast. Yeah, it was very old school bodybuilding style kind of diet approach. Now, obviously that didn't really bother me because, you know, this was my first experience. So if I was going to do it, I was going to do it properly and do exactly what my coach had said. But the things that I really probably didn't understand at the time was what it was really going to take in terms of the complications and the struggles with relationship with food. Probably one of the biggest things, because when you are dieting into that sort of a deficit and you're training that much and you're doing that much cardio, it really does put a strain on your relationship with food. And this is something that I had no experience around or even thought about when it comes to food prepping. So I kind of went in to these first shows with that mentality of, you know, it's going to be hard, but just do what I'm being told to do. Honestly, it was so long ago now that I can't really piece together exactly how I was feeling at the time, but I just remember getting to, you know, 6 to 8 weeks out and really starting to struggle. And I was going through a lot of binge eating phases. So I would just completely, you know, give in and binge and then restrict again and then binge. And it was kind of like this cycle just continued basically until I got to the stage. So at no point in time was I ever actually tracking my food intake. I was just trying to follow the strict plan that was given to me. At one point, very close to stage, when I was not feeling healthy at all, I was feeling completely run down, but to another level. Like I couldn't even really drive properly because things like pushing the clutch, at the time I had a manual car, pushing the clutch in and holding my foot on the brake was actually, it was too hard. Like I was too tired to sit at the traffic lights and keep my foot on the brake. So it was just getting to a point where things were just, you know, my moods were awful. I was in a bad mood all the time. And so I kind of thought, I'm going to see how many calories I'm eating. Why not? I'm going to put my meal plan into my Fitness Pal and just see what it comes up as. It was at that point that it really struck me. I was eating less than 900 calories, or that was what I was supposed to be eating per day. So I think it was like 880, 890 calories that I had actually calculated from that meal plan. Plus training every day or most days, plus doing, I think at that point, at least an hour of cardio a day. So, I kind of looked at that and at the time I thought, oh, well, this must be what it takes, 800 calories, whatever, like get it done. This is what I need to do to get to stage. But of course, looking back now, I have learned so much and I realized that just was not necessary. There was a lot of other things along the way that really made me question whether what I was doing was right, and whether I should be going through with it. Just the way that I was feeling. My skin was horrible. My hair just felt dry and brittle. I just was not feeling healthy at all. And there's always that element of comp prep taking your body to the extreme level, but this was definitely beyond that line. And it was a line that didn't need to be crossed. So I cannot at the time remember actually losing my period. And I know that a lot of females do quite easily lose their period once they get to a certain lean state. I do, however, have a relatively lean physique, and that kind of is run through my genetics. So for me, in my last 2 WBFF shows, I did not lose my period at all, and I was not on any contraceptive pill either. So everything running as normal for my last 2 WBFF shows, and I felt healthy. I got to stage day obviously feeling depleted and tired, but to a level where I still knew that I was feeling okay, So back to this first show. Funnily enough, I ended up actually winning my first ever show. And then I went on to do a couple more competitions that same year. I did a nationals competition, and another A and B show where I don't think I placed at all. And also had another coach during that time as well. Obviously after the first show and realizing, I was eating 800 calories, and by that point I was starting to get a feeling that I could probably do this in a healthier or a better way. I did seek another coach, but unfortunately, due to the fact that there just wasn't enough time between those shows, even the second and the third show that I did back then, my body and my metabolism was just not in a great place. So I was never going to get to the physique that I wanted to get to, and the headspace that I needed to get to really, follow through with these competitions in a great place. So after this, I actually went overseas. I went to America, which was probably the worst idea because at the time, like I said, I wasn't tracking. I didn't really know how to track my food. I did, but not enough. I hadn't done it enough to really have it down packed as a consistent routine for myself. So I went and I traveled overseas. I went to America for a couple of weeks, ate all the food under the sun, and I came back and I was over 70 kilos. So I think I had put on about 7 or 8 kilos in, 3 to 4 weeks time, basically. Obviously, that point in time did not last that long. I managed to get things under wraps and kind of look at focusing on my health and more into nutrition. I guess this experience with this competition was what really sparked me, my need and want to know more about how nutrition works. For a lot of the early days in that training time, I was, doing pretty well in the gym, but I was never really utilizing the nutrition side of things that well. So it basically, after those couple of competitions, I said I was never going to do another show again. I didn't really feel like it was a great experience for me, and I absolutely did not want to go through that emotional trauma that I went through the first couple of times of competing, and having to deal with the relationship with the food after the show, which was the hardest part. It was trying to keep things under control when you no longer had that goal there, and that's something that I really struggled with. So it wasn't until 6 or 7 years later, during this time, I have done so much study around nutrition. I have coached under many reputable coaches during this time. You know, I have an extra 6 to 7 years experience under my belt. I've started to learn, obviously by that point, I was tracking my food, tracking macros, understanding the importance of, you know, where I needed certain things in my diet. And also probably one of the biggest things is understanding the metabolism, and that, you know, building up and keeping your metabolism running at maintenance is so important, and an important part of, I guess, anyone who's looking to do a competition. So it was at that point, many years later, that I revisited the idea of maybe wanting to do another show. Now, of course, in that time, social media came into the mix. It was very much a lot more easier to get in contact with coaches. Online coaching came into the mix as well, and also seeing more people out there doing the sport. Bikini inspos on Instagram and that sort of thing. So it was just before I moved to the UK a couple of years ago that I said to myself, you know what, I want to do this again. I did really like the WBFF style. Being a performer and a dancer and coming from that background, WBFF to me is a real more expressive way of building a physique and being able to showcase that on the stage. I feel that, of course, there is a bit of a criteria as to what they are looking for, but it's not so much set in stone. It is more about that entire package that you bring, from your bikini to your posing, your walking, and the shape that you are bringing to the stage. So that is what attracted me to WBFF to start with. And of course, being that I had moved overseas, the first show that I would have had to do was the London show. So I got in touch with my coach, Melissa, and for me, I really wanted to work with a female coach after having both male and female coaches for comp prep in the past. This is just something that I kind of knew I wanted. I had a girlfriend in Sydney who had competed in WBFF when I was living there, and she was coaching with Melissa and had nothing but great things to say about her. So for me, I just wanted to really go with someone that I could trust, that was going to have my health and my goals both aligned. So after doing my first WBFF show and winning my pro card in my first show, I definitely proved to myself that competition prep should not be a horrible experience at all, and it should be done feeling great and healthy still. Of course you're going to be depleted, of course you're going to be tired, of course it is going to get freaking tough, but this was a different tough to what I had experienced so many years before. This will now be my third WBFF show, and I have noted that every single prep, it does get easier. I become more experienced with the whole prep. I know what to expect, and I find better ways to cope with things along the way. Flexible dieting has also been a game changer for me. My first show that I did with Melissa, she wanted me to do meal plans, which I completely respected at the time. I definitely needed to do meal plans because I wanted to see the types of food, how she wanted to lay my food out, and why I was eating the foods that I was eating coming into my first show with her. So the second show, I actually did a more flexible approach where she trusted me to do my own meals, make my own meals, as long as I was staying consistent and choosing the right food. She was happy for me to do that. And since then, that is the approach that we have been doing. And hence why I'm showing you guys some of the food choices that I do through my competition prep to both keep me feeling happy, loving the journey, enjoying my food, but also making conscious and right decisions to be eating the right food, because it is a fine line between loving what you're eating, still having a little balance and enjoying that yummy food, but also choosing the right food for energy, mind, and just health as well. And someone did ask me on my Instagram the other day if whether you track your macros, it really matters what types of food you eat. It absolutely does. And more so, even more important when you are looking to get, you know, the best results possible physically, as well as with performance as well. Guys, of course, if you are eating processed foods that are having all of those extra added ingredients, it is not going to be digested. It is not going to be utilized the same as what your body would do with wholesome, clean foods. A big part of actually getting that progress as well comes down to ensuring that your digestion and energy is also on point. So you really do need to make sure that you are getting good food in your diet and not filling your macros with crap processed food. Flexible dieting really is about having a little more freedom of choice in what you eat rather than having to just go blindly off a meal plan daily. But it's definitely not about fitting crap food into your diet. So like me, I have a little FOPO in the evening. That's 150 calories of my whole day. The rest I try to get from wholesome food. So you don't want to be, for example, skipping lunchtime to fit, you know, a chocolate bar and a protein bar in instead. You still want to be getting 80 to 90% of that wholesome, good food for the day. And then maybe that little 10% of something that you enjoy. So speaking of food, I'm gonna share with you guys now meal number 3 for the day, afternoon snack, which is normally my post-workout meal on training days. So this is meal number 3, guys. It is my afternoon snack today. So it's about 4:00 p.m. now. So normally, as I was just saying, this is normally my post-workout meal. So I'll have my rice bubbles and protein straight after my training session. And it's normally a larger portion as well on that day. And then I'll have my bagel, avocado in the afternoon for an afternoon snack. So I hope you liked today's episode, and I'm gonna close off today's video here. And before I do go, I will show you guys what I'm eating for my dinner and of course, my before bedtime treat. Stay tuned for my next episode, guys. I'm gonna be taking you through a full leg session with me and a full day of eating on my higher calorie days.